"You're not a son, you're a punishment." Those were the chilling words my biological father whispered to me during my childhood, a haunting echo that still reverberates in my mind. When I was just 8 years old, my parents abandoned me, leaving behind a notarized envelope that renounced any claim to my life. In an instant, I was cast aside, lost to a world that would soon learn to ignore me. Fast forward 2 decades, and I found myself living a life that felt like a fairy tale. I had risen from the ashes of my painful past to become a renowned model, earning millions of dollars each year. But just as I thought I had escaped the shadows of my childhood, my biological parents resurfaced, not with apologies or remorse, but with demands for money and a taste of the fame I had built without them. Stay with me as I recount the tumultuous journey I faced when they came looking for me once more. Hello everyone, my name is Marcus Sterling, and I'm 29 years old, currently residing in Manhattan, New York. I carry with me a port wine birthmark that stretches from my forehead to my left cheek, a mark that once made me a target for scorn and rejection. Yet against all odds, that very imperfection has transformed into my hallmark in the high fashion industry. Today, my life resembles a dream, filled with a flourishing career and an incredible relationship with my girlfriend, Isabella. Isabella, a talented model from Mexico, boasts 2.3 million followers on Instagram. Our paths first crossed during a photo shoot in Milan 3 years ago when she was 24 and I was 26. On that very first day, she leaned in and said, "You have something most models lack, you have a soul." Her words struck a chord deep within me, and soon after we became inseparable. Yet as I reflect on my journey, I cannot overlook the profound influence of my adoptive mother, Grace Sterling. At 52 years old, Grace is the woman who pulled me from the depths of despair and loved me unconditionally, as if I were her own flesh and blood. I owe every ounce of my success to her unwavering support and fierce belief in me. She's now enjoying retirement in a 5-bedroom Georgian-style home with a 2-acre lavender garden in Stowe, Vermont. That house was a gift I bought for her last year. I still remember when Grace walked into that house for the first time. She burst into tears and said, "My son, I never thought I'd ever have a home this beautiful." And I told her, "You deserve every good thing in this world. Without you, I wouldn't be where I am today." Even though my life right now feels pretty perfect, I still can't forget what happened a year ago when my biological parents forced their way back into my life after abandoning me for 21 years. The family drama I'm about to share happened on a February morning last year, right after I landed my third magazine cover with the headline, "The Face of the Future." I remember that morning vividly. My phone rang when I was sitting in my room, sipping coffee and reading the paper. Seeing the name Derek Thompson on the screen, I immediately knew something serious was happening. Derek is a veteran publicist. He has over 20 years of experience handling media crises, and he rarely calls me before 9 a.m. unless it's an emergency or a major scandal. As soon as I picked up, Derek spoke with a tense voice. "Marcus, we've got a big problem. I just got word from a reporter I know in Cleveland. Two people claiming to be your biological parents are about to hold a press conference at the Aloft Cleveland Downtown Hotel in 2 hours." Right after he said that, my hands started to shake and I almost dropped my coffee cup. Trying to stay calm, I asked Derek, "What the hell is this? I already have a mom, Grace Sterling. She raised me since I was 8. Then Derek, with an even more serious tone, said, "They're accusing Grace of kidnapping you when you were 8. They're demanding to regain custody and seeking financial compensation for what they're calling 21 years of emotional suffering and lost parental rights." At that moment, it felt like my whole world was collapsing. Memories I had buried for 21 years came rushing back like a tsunami. I thought I had escaped my past for good. I thought Vincent Crawford and Rebecca Crawford, the two people who abandoned me so cruelly, would never reappear in my life. Derek continued with urgency in his voice, "Marcus, they've hired a lawyer and a PR team. They know exactly what they're doing. This isn't some impulsive move. They've planned this carefully." After those words, I felt a deep anger rise from the pit of my stomach. 21 years of silence, 21 years without a single call, not one letter, not even a word asking if I was alive. And now when I'm successful, my face is on major magazine covers and earning millions of dollars, and they show up like vultures smelling rotting meat. To help you understand why I was so angry, I need to tell you about my childhood in Middletown, Ohio. It's a small town where everyone knows each other's business and rumors spread like wildfire. I was born on March 15, 1995 at Miami Valley Hospital with a massive port wine birthmark covering nearly 40% of the left side of my face. The mark stretched from my forehead across my left eye down to my cheek and nearly to my chin. It was a deep red like a dark wine standing harshly against my pale skin. At the time, Dr. Mitchell explained to Vincent and Rebecca that it was a congenital birthmark. It wasn't painful or dangerous to my health, but it would be permanent and might darken over time. He also mentioned a few laser treatments that could help when I got older, but they were costly and not covered by insurance. From the time I was very young, my birth mother, Rebecca, never once looked me straight in the face. Whenever I tried to come close to her as a little kid, she would turn away or push me to the other side of the room. My biological father, Vincent, was even worse. He didn't just ignore me, he actively hated me. When I was 6, I accidentally dropped a glass of water on the floor. He exploded like a bomb and shouted, "That birthmark, proof I was cursed with a mistake. You're not a son, you're a punishment." And when I was little, every time someone came to the house, whether it was a neighbor or the guy reading the electric meter, Vincent would whisper to me, "Go upstairs right now and don't come down until they're gone. You'll scare people and embarrass the whole family." I was systematically excluded from every family activity. I was told to stand behind the camera when Rebecca took holiday pictures with relatives. I was fed in the kitchen at family gatherings at my grandparents' house while everyone else ate in the dining room. School events were even worse. I was banned from class pictures starting in kindergarten. When Lincoln Elementary held its spring festival, Rebecca told the teachers, "Marcus is sick and can't attend." But the truth was she didn't want other parents to see me and associate their families with that disfigured kid. The most painful part was having to wear a medical mask every time I stepped outside. Rebecca told the neighbors I had breathing issues, but really she just wanted to hide my face. I remember how suffocating that mask felt, how it made me feel like a monster that had to be hidden away from the world. And in that whole world filled with hatred and rejection, there was only one person who treated me like a normal human being. That person was Grace Sterling, who would later become my adoptive mother. Grace had been Rebecca's best friend since high school. They met at Middletown High School and stayed close for years. At the time, Grace was 31, a nurse, single, and childless. She lived in a small, cozy house on Elm Street about 15 minutes from our home. Grace had warm brown eyes and a smile that was always bright. Her voice was soft but steady, the kind of voice you could trust when you heard it. Whenever Grace visited our family, she would immediately look for me. She didn't flinch when she saw my birthmark, didn't turn her face away in discomfort, and didn't pretend I didn't exist. Instead, Grace would kneel to my eye level and say, "Hey there, handsome little guy. How are you today, sweetheart?" The first time I heard the word handsome, I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever called me handsome before. Most people either avoided eye contact or stared at me with pity. When I turned 5, Grace started bringing small gifts each time she visited. They weren't expensive toys, just simple things like picture books, colored pencils, or animal-shaped stickers. She would sit with me on the living room floor, helping me color and reading stories. I remember one time Grace read me the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. After finishing it, she said, "Rudolph was different from all the other reindeer, but that made him special, and you're just like him, Marcus. You're different, and that's what makes you wonderful." When I was 6, Grace walked in on Rebecca, forcing me to wear a mask inside the house because guests were coming over. Grace confronted her immediately. She said, "Rebecca, what are you doing? Marcus is a beautiful child. He doesn't need to hide his face." Rebecca got defensive and replied, "Grace, you don't understand. People stare, they judge. I'm protecting him." But Grace didn't back down. She said firmly, "You're not protecting him. You're teaching him to be ashamed of himself. That birthmark doesn't define him. His character and his heart do." That was the first time I ever heard someone stand up for me. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening to every word, and I felt for the first time that someone truly cared about me. After that confrontation, Rebecca started limiting Grace's visits. She said Grace was interfering with parenting decisions and confusing the child. But Grace still found ways to see me, sometimes at the grocery store, sometimes at the park. And she always said to me, "Remember, sweetheart, you are the perfect little boy." Then in June 2003, when I was 8 years old, Vincent and Rebecca's financial situation hit rock bottom. By that time, Vincent had started developing a gambling habit. He spent his evenings at the casino, blowing his entire paycheck on poker and slot machines, always convinced that a big win was just around the corner. Things took a serious turn when Vincent lost $15,000 in one night playing poker. That amount was twice his monthly salary. To cover the debt, he borrowed money from local loan sharks, the kind of people who weren't known for their patience. Meanwhile, Rebecca lost her job at Walmart due to repeated absences. The manager had warned her several times about not showing up without notice, but Rebecca always blamed it on the stress of caring for a disabled child. One Friday in early August, when the loan sharks began making threatening phone calls and even showing up at the house, Vincent decided the only solution was to go to Las Vegas and try to win it all back. He had a friend named Carlos Martinez who worked at a casino in Vegas and promised to give Vincent some inside information about high-stakes poker tables. Vincent believed that with the last $5,000 left in his bank account, he could turn it into $50,000 and solve all their problems. But there was one problem: they couldn't take me with them. Taking care of an 8-year-old in Las Vegas while trying to gamble wasn't possible, and they didn't want to spend money on a babysitter either. That's when Rebecca thought of Grace Sterling. The next afternoon, Vincent drove to Grace's house on Elm Street. When Grace opened the door, Vincent spoke in a voice that was trying hard to sound sincere. "Grace, we need a favor. We need you to watch Marcus for a few days. We must go to Las Vegas to handle some urgent financial stuff." After that request, Grace agreed right away without asking too many questions. She thought it was just a short trip and that Vincent and Rebecca would return to pick me up as usual. 3 days went by. I was happy staying at Grace's house, and for the first time in my life I experienced what it felt like to be truly loved and cared for. During those days, Grace cooked delicious meals, read bedtime stories, and never told me to hide my face. Then on the morning of the fourth day, Grace received a package from a courier service. When she opened it in the living room, she was utterly shocked. Inside was a thick envelope containing documents signed and notarized at the Butler County Courthouse. They were custody relinquishment papers. At the bottom of the page were the clear signatures of Vincent Crawford and Rebecca Crawford, along with the official seal of a notary public. There was also a separate handwritten note from Rebecca. The writing was rushed and uneven. It said, "We can't take care of him anymore. Please help us. We know Grace can love him more than we ever could." In those few quiet minutes, I watched as Grace read that note over and over again, her hands trembling. She couldn't believe that two parents could abandon their child so coldly. Right after that, Grace tried calling every phone number she had for Vincent and Rebecca, but none of them went through. She even drove to their house on Oak Street. The place looked deserted. The mailbox was stuffed with letters and a yellow notice was taped to the door. It was an eviction notice for non-payment of rent. At that moment, Grace pulled me into her arms and said in a choked voice, "Sweetheart, from now on, I'm going to take care of you. I will never leave you." As an 8-year-old, I didn't fully understand what was happening at that time, but I could feel the sincerity in Grace's voice. I wrapped my arms around her and asked, "Can I stay with you forever, Miss Grace?" Grace cried and answered right away, "Yes, my love, you will stay with me forever." That same week, Grace went to the Hamilton County Family Court and petitioned for official adoption. The legal process moved relatively quickly since she already had the notarized custody relinquishment papers. At the time, Judge Patricia Williams, a 50-year-old woman with many years of experience in family cases, interviewed me privately in her office. She asked if I wanted to live with Grace, and I nodded eagerly. I told the judge, "Miss Grace is nice to me. She doesn't make me wear a mask. She says I'm handsome." After I said that, Judge Williams looked at the birthmark on my face, then into my eyes with a look of understanding. She nodded and smiled. In the years that followed, Grace worked tirelessly to support me. A nurse's salary at the time was about $30,000 a year, not much to raise a child with special needs. On top of financial pressure, Grace also faced judgment from society and whispers from neighbors, friends, and even family. People said she was crazy for adopting me, but Grace never wavered in the face of gossip. Every time someone said something negative about me, she would respond calmly but firmly. "My son will prove you all wrong, just wait and see." The first time I called Grace Mom was when I was 10 during an ordinary dinner. We were having spaghetti and meatballs, my favorite meal, and I said, "Mom, can I have some more cheese?" Grace was sipping water at the time. When she heard that, she nearly choked. She set down her glass, her eyes full of tears, and smiled as she replied gently, "Of course, my sweet boy." From that moment on, Grace truly became my mom in every sense of the word. She attended every parent-teacher conference, never missed a soccer game I played in, even though I was always on the bench, and was always there whenever I needed her. In 2012, when I was 17 and getting ready to graduate with decent grades, Grace decided to take me to New York on a graduation trip. She had been saving money for 2 years to afford it. That trip ended up changing my life completely. That year, we stayed at a small hotel in Queens, about 45 minutes by subway from Manhattan. We explored famous tourist spots like the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, Central Park, and especially Times Square every day. On the third day of the trip, we were standing in the middle of Times Square, overwhelmed by the giant billboards and the non-stop crowds. Grace was taking a photo of me when a young man walked up to us and said, "Hi, I'm Alex, a street photographer. You've got something special. That birthmark isn't a flaw, it's your signature. Can I take a few photos of you?" At first, I hesitated, but Grace encouraged me. "Give it a try, sweetheart. This could be an opportunity." After that, Alex took about 30 shots in Times Square, then moved us to Central Park for a more natural background. Throughout the session, he kept complimenting me. "Amazing, that birthmark creates such a beautiful asymmetry. You have a very unique look." Alex showed me the photos on his camera screen when the shoot was over. For the first time, I saw that I could look beautiful. In those pictures, the birthmark wasn't something to hide. It was the feature that made me stand out and drew people in. Alex handed us his business card and said, "I'll edit these and send them to you. I'd also love to post a few on my Instagram if that's okay with you." A week after we returned to Ohio, Alex sent us an email with 20 professionally edited photos. He also posted 3 of them on his Instagram. Within 24 hours, the photos went viral with over 25,000 likes and thousands of positive comments like, "He's handsome. That birthmark makes him look unique and striking. This is what real beauty looks like. No Photoshop needed. I want to know who he is." 2 days later, I got an email from an independent fashion magazine in Brooklyn. They invited me to be the cover model for their special issue on unconventional beauty. When we read that email, Grace burst into tears of joy. The photo shoot took place at a small studio in Soho in October 2012. It was my first time experiencing a professional shoot with a team of makeup artists, hairstylists, and lighting technicians. What stood out most was the makeup artist, a woman named Sofia Rivera. She didn't try to hide my birthmark. Instead, she enhanced it using a highlighter to highlight its natural texture and color. At one point, Sophia said to me, "We're not covering up what makes you special, we're celebrating it." After the makeup session, the shoot lasted 6 hours and was done in various outfits from casual to formal. The lead photographer, Jonathan Park, gave me constant guidance on how to pose, use the light to my advantage, and most importantly, be confident in myself. When the magazine was released in December, I was on the cover with the headline, "Beauty Redefined, Meet the Face That's Changing Fashion Standards." The 4-page article inside told my story and shared the message of redefining beauty standards. That issue sold out within a week, and they had to print 5,000 additional copies to meet demand. More importantly, the photos were widely shared on social media, especially Instagram and Facebook. And within just 1 month, I received emails from 3 modeling agencies in New York wanting to represent me. From 2012 to 2023, my career took off in a way I never imagined. My first primary job was a cover shoot for a well-known fashion magazine, The Face of the Future. I had the chance to work with a famous photographer and top wardrobe specialists, the kind of names most models only dream of working with. That shoot took place at a villa in the Italian countryside. It was my first time traveling abroad, and it felt surreal to see myself wearing luxury fashion in such a fairytale-like setting. After that editorial, the offers started pouring in. High-end fashion brands wanted me for their campaigns. Some iconic fashion houses reached out to discuss collaborations. I got invitations to major fashion weeks. However, the real turning point came in September 2018 when a major fashion brand chose me as the face of their campaign called "Different is Beautiful." The campaign didn't just feature me. It also included models with vitiligo and physical disabilities. That was where I met Isabella. She was one of the other models chosen for the campaign. From the moment we met, there was an instant connection. After the shoot, we went to dinner at a local restaurant. Isabella opened up to me about her childhood and her challenges in the fashion industry. We officially started dating in December 2018. Our relationship quickly became a favorite topic in the fashion press. Back to that fateful morning last year. After hearing Derek's news about the press conference, I immediately called Grace. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "they're back." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then Grace replied firmly, "My love, I've been waiting for this day for 21 years. We're going to fight them with everything we've got." Without hesitation, I booked a flight to Cleveland with my attorney, Catherine Jones. Catherine, 42 years old, is a senior partner at a respected law firm in Manhattan. She specializes in family law and defamation cases. She has handled many high-profile cases and is known for never compromising when defending her clients. The flight from JFK to Cleveland Hopkins took just 2 hours, but it felt like an eternity. I kept replaying childhood memories the entire flight. All those moments when Vincent and Rebecca treated me like garbage. The press conference had already begun when we arrived at the Marriott downtown Cleveland. The conference room was packed with journalists from local news stations, newspapers, and even a few national outlets that had started picking up the story. Vincent and Rebecca were seated at a long table in front, with a young attorney beside them. Rebecca began speaking in a trembling voice, one that was rehearsed. "I'm Rebecca Crawford, the biological mother of Marcus Sterling. 21 years ago, during a time of financial hardship, my closest friend, Grace Sterling, took advantage of our situation and stole our son." Hearing such blatant lies made me feel physically sick. Catherine placed her hand on my arm to remind me to stay calm. Rebecca continued her performance. "We never abandoned Marcus. We temporarily left him with Grace while handling a financial crisis with the agreement that we would return. But when we came back, Grace had disappeared with our child." Vincent then spoke. "We spent years searching for our son. We hired private investigators, contacted the police, and did everything possible. Grace systematically hid Marcus from us and brainwashed him into believing we abandoned him." After that, their lawyer, a young man named Samuel Stevens from a small Cleveland law firm, read a prepared statement. "The Crawford family is seeking the right to reunite with their son and financial compensation for the 21 years they were separated from him. They are also considering legal action against Grace Sterling for kidnapping and unlawful guardianship." Catherine and I left the hotel in silence when the press conference ended. On the way back to the airport, Catherine looked at me and said, "Marcus, they just dug their own grave. These accusations are completely baseless, but we need to act fast." When I returned to New York, I immediately called Grace and booked her a last-minute flight to join us. At that point, we needed to gather every piece of evidence to fight back against the false accusations. Grace arrived in New York that evening, carrying an old cardboard box she had kept in her closet for 21 years. Inside were all the documents related to my abandonment and adoption. We sat in the living room and spread the materials on the coffee table. Isabella sat beside us, hearing the whole story for the first time. First, Grace presented a photocopy of the courier envelope with Rebecca's clear signature and a tracking number. This proved they had willingly sent the custody relinquishment documents and that Grace had not kidnapped me as they claimed. Second, the relinquishment papers were notarized at the Butler County Courthouse on August 16, 2003. They included the full signatures of both Vincent and Rebecca, along with the seal and signature of the notary public, Margaret Thompson. Third, Grace had complete medical records showing she cared for me since I was 8. This included routine checkups, vaccinations, and treatments at Riverside Medical Center. Fourth, financial documentation proved that Grace had covered all expenses for raising me since 2003. This included food, clothing, school tuition, and medical costs. Every receipt and invoice was carefully saved. Fifth, she had letters and emails from my school confirming that she had been my legal guardian. She had attended all parent-teacher meetings, signed every vital document, and made all educational decisions on my behalf. Finally, Grace had family photos from 2003 to the present, showing me growing up in a loving and stable home, completely contradicting the image of a kidnapped child that Vincent and Rebecca were trying to paint. After reviewing all the documents, Catherine looked up with a confident voice and said, "Marcus, we don't just have enough evidence to defend you. We can strike back hard. What they're doing could be considered defamation and damaging your reputation." While we were preparing our legal strategy, the story about my biological parents spread like wildfire on social media. Videos from Vincent and Rebecca's press conference were uploaded across every platform. Public reaction quickly split into two distinct sides. One group believed Vincent and Rebecca's narrative, leaving comments like, "No one has the right to take a child from their biological parents. This poor family searched for their son for 21 years. Grace Sterling is a child abductor. Rich people always think they can do whatever they want." But many defended me and Grace, sharing views such as, "Why are they only showing up now? Something about this doesn't add up. Marcus Sterling deserves happiness, they just want money." My social media accounts were flooded with thousands of comments, ranging from messages of support to harsh criticism. At that point, I had to turn off all comments to protect my mental health temporarily. Isabella got pulled into the storm too. She received hundreds of messages, some supportive, others attacking her for taking the side of a kidnapped man. At the same time, the fashion brands I was working with began to worry about the impact on their image. Derek Thompson worked around the clock to manage the situation. He scheduled interviews with major television networks, prepared press releases, and coordinated with the legal team to ensure the facts were communicated accurately. And in the middle of all that chaos, the thing that hurt me the most was seeing the comments about Grace. The woman who had saved me, who had loved me like her own son, was now being called a kidnapper and a criminal. One week after Vincent and Rebecca's press conference, we held our own at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. The room was packed with reporters from major news outlets. I began with a calm but determined voice. "Good afternoon to the press and everyone watching. My name is Marcus Sterling. Today I speak the truth about my life and the woman who saved me from a hellish childhood." Right after that, I presented the first piece of evidence. I held up a photocopy of the courier envelope. This is a copy of the envelope Rebecca Crawford sent to Grace Sterling on August 19, 2003. You can see her signature, the sender's address, and the tracking number. I passed the copy around for reporters to examine and verify the information. Next, I raised the custody relinquishment papers. These documents were signed and notarized by Vincent Crawford and Rebecca Crawford on August 16, 2003, relinquishing their parental rights. There was no coercion, no deception. They gave me up voluntarily. Cameras clicking filled the room as journalists captured every image of the critical documents. Then Grace stood to speak. With a voice that was strong yet full of emotion, my mother said, "I didn't kidnap any child. I saw an 8-year-old boy who had been abandoned with a letter relinquishing custody. I couldn't turn my back on a child in need." Grace continued, "For 21 years, I have loved Marcus as my own. I've stood by him through everything, from the bullying he endured in school to the success he has achieved in his career. I do not regret my decision." After those words, the room fell completely silent. Even seasoned journalists who had covered countless scandals were visibly moved by the honesty and emotion in Grace's voice. After the truth was revealed with full supporting evidence, public opinion shifted completely within just a few hours. Vincent and Rebecca immediately disappeared from all media platforms. Their attorney, Samuel Stevens, withdrew from the case right after reviewing the documents we presented. He stated that he could not continue to represent a claim clearly without merit. Vincent and Rebecca's social media accounts were bombarded with thousands of critical comments. They had to shut down all their profiles and vanished entirely from the internet. But I knew that wasn't the end. What they had done, trying to destroy my life and Grace's reputation with blatant lies, needed to carry legal consequences. 2 weeks after our press conference, Catherine Jones filed a lawsuit against Vincent Crawford and Rebecca Crawford in New York County Court with 3 main charges. First, defamation and damage to reputation. Vincent and Rebecca intentionally spread false information about Grace kidnapping me, which seriously harmed both my reputation and Grace's. Second, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Their actions caused unnecessary emotional suffering for both me and Grace through malicious and false accusations. Third, child abandonment civil charge. While the statute of limitations for criminal prosecution had passed, we could still pursue a civil claim with clear evidence. We sought $5 million in damages and a permanent restraining order. At that point, Vincent and Rebecca could not afford a strong legal defense. They had to rely on a public defender, a young man named Daniel Park, who had just graduated from law school and was overwhelmed by the case's complexity. After 6 months of legal proceedings, the court ruled entirely in our favor. The final ruling was that Vincent and Rebecca were to pay a total of $2.5 million in compensation, reduced from $5 million after negotiation. They were also issued a restraining order prohibiting contact with me and Grace for 10 years. They were also ordered to issue a public apology across major media outlets and pay all of our legal expenses. Unable to pay the massive settlement, Vincent and Rebecca had to sell their $80,000 trailer home in Middletown. Rebecca lost her part-time job at Dollar General after the scandal spread through the local community. Vincent couldn't find any new job as anyone could Google his name and see the entire story. The Middletown community completely turned its back on them. The Baptist church they used to attend asked them to stop coming. While not banning them outright, the local grocery store saw staff and customers avoiding them altogether. Even extended family members cut ties. Rebecca's brother, Thomas Miller, publicly declared on Facebook, "I'm ashamed to have a sister like Rebecca. My family has nothing to do with her anymore." After the legal storm settled about 8 months ago, I brought Grace and Isabella to our new home in Stowe, Vermont. The dream house Grace had always wished for. The house has 5 bedrooms, a spacious living room with a stone fireplace, and most importantly, a 2-acre lavender garden that Grace can tend to with her hands. On our first night in the new home in that peaceful atmosphere, I asked Grace, "Mom, if you hadn't adopted me back then." Immediately, before I could finish the sentence, Grace looked at me with eyes full of love and answered quickly, "My sweet boy, you were born to shine. I just helped you see it." After those words, I felt a calm settle over me, peace after everything we had been through, and today I'm 29 years old, more successful than I ever dared to dream. The birthmark that once made Vincent and Rebecca feel ashamed has now become a symbol of strength, overcoming adversity, and the beauty of diversity. Grace Sterling, not Rebecca Crawford, is my birth mother. She has shown that true family isn't defined by blood, but by love, sacrifice, and an unbreakable commitment to never give up on each other. Vincent and Rebecca tried to take advantage of my success after abandoning me. Instead, they learned the hard way that karma never forgets an address. Isabella and I are planning our wedding next spring in Grace's lavender garden. We're also talking about having children and creating a family built on love, not the illusion of physical perfection. And before I end this story, I want to share a message with anyone listening. If you've ever been rejected for how you look, for being different, for not fitting someone else's expectations, remember this. What gets you rejected today might be what the world admires in you tomorrow. A real family isn't made up of the people who gave you life. A real family comprises the people who choose to stay when the rest of the world walks away. They're the ones who love you unconditionally, the ones who believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. And if you're going through something similar right now, know this. You deserve love, you deserve happiness. And the people who truly matter will see the beauty in your true self. And if you were me, if your biological parents came back after 21 years, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story meant something to you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about family, personal growth, and finding strength in adversity. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a day filled with love and happiness.